We are ready to go with round number 5 of the Swiss and of the American playoffs. I'm excited to get into this one. We are going to be kicking it off with Stark versus Fenom. Stark's first time at a Hearthstone Championship Tour event. Yeah, wow. His first playoff, and he's Argentinian as well, so he's one of these South American representatives, one of 2 who are 4-0 in Swiss. And South America has not put forward a champion before in a playoff or championship, and also have never sent someone to Worlds. And now they have 2 members that are looking very, very strong and have kind of come out of nowhere, to be honest.
Those are some good stats, Raven. You sounded really smart just then. Well done.
I do try now and again to just sound a little bit smart.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about South America as a region in our previous series when we were casting just over there. And it's... As we mentioned, like North America have complained historically that they don't have as many major Hearthstone events as we have in Europe to be able to get a lot of exposure and just a lot of tournament practice. South America, you have to imagine, is just even more so, right? Yeah. So they have to travel an amazing distance even just to go to like DreamHack Austin, for example. So, you know, for these players to step up, and the 2 of them holding a 4-0 record now, that's a colossal achievement for South America.
Yeah, it is Stark, and the other player is Diego Diaz as well, is playing in it's both 4-0. It's absolutely incredible. If they make a win on this round, 5-0 is looking not guaranteed, but at this spot, very, very great. You know, like, even if they take a loss, it feels almost guaranteed at this point.
Yeah, I think literally everything else has to go against you. If you go 5-0 to 5-2 and you don't make it through on tiebreakers, like, some wacky stuff has happened.
Yeah, and this could be a huge deal for these players. We discussed the South American scene in general. I've actually been trying to take a bit more of an in-depth look over the past few weeks, at least, especially with global games.
Of course.
And I was speaking to one of the South American casters, which has helped me out with some information on a lot of the players. We saw VCT play earlier as well, who's another player from South America. So these guys are coming out strong so far. And for Stark as well, your first playoff, 4-0, and you can potentially buck the trend and really put South America on the map in terms of high-place finishes and potential championship performances.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is kind of the lineup that he's done it with. He's got this hotly contested Evolve Shaman as part of his lineup. Or sorry, Fenom has. He's doing very well at 3-1 as well. Stark, on the other hand, has a fairly mid-rangey lineup, trying to potentially punish control decks, right? He has the Quest Rogue and the Jade Druid and the mid-range Paladin, all 3 of which are very, very accomplished at pushing through slow control decks. You know, mid-range Paladin pushes out the aggression early and then just has too much value later on to be exhausted. Quest Rogue, of course, classical hard counter now to the control decks. Jade Druid has been in that position for several expansions in a row. So you can see why his lineup has done so well. You can tell by just the time of day that we're at right now, in currently round number 5, that this has been a very control-heavy meta game, and Stark is just in a position to punish all these greedy decks.
Yeah, and his opponent is going to be Fenom. I believe we did see him a little bit earlier on stream as well. He's not messing around with his control shenanigans. Like, no, that's gone out the window. He's got Aggro Druid, Hunter, the Bloodless Shaman you've just actually seen Froden and Kibler bring you a game of as well, and Pirate Warriors. So Fenom said, no, I'm not going to play control. I'm just going to play, some of the most powerful aggressive decks. The 4th deck, so to speak, is that Hunter, I feel, in this lineup. Even a slight offshoot with the Shaman, like there's no Tempo Mage, Secret Mage, for example. So a little bit of an off choice, but Fenom being 3-1 Stark, unfortunately for him being paired down into Fenom, it's going to be a bit of a pain for tiebreakers.
Yeah, when I said everything's going to have to go against you for you to go from 5-2 to come down, being paired down in one of your matchups is definitely one of those possibilities.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know as well, that means that because you're not playing against someone as you would normally in Swiss, as like, 4-0 versus a 4-0, if you get paired down, it means your opponent's score goes into your tiebreaker. And if your opponent's got less wins than you, then his score's going to be lower, which then means your tiebreaker's going to be lower. So there's a small chance that it could still be a struggle. But up until this point, I mean, Stark's doing absolutely fantastic. He is already, I think, 4-0, doing great for his first time in playoffs, representing South America as a whole, and Argentina specifically as a country is looking absolutely fantastic here. We can check out an update on the leaderboard and what the actual standings are looking like right about now. Stark 4-0, Diego Diaz, the other South American representative.
There you go.
4-0. Kunet, we've just seen Muzzy and Radam that we saw much earlier on in the day play as well. All these guys 4-0 so far, looking very, very strong going into the later portions of this Swiss.
Yeah, awesome to see Muzzy flying the flag with a 4-0 record. A lot of other names you might recognize as well. Of course, Tare, if you've watched any kind of America's Hearthstone Championship Tour broadcast, you have seen Tare.
He just gets there.
He just gets the job done eventually. Astrogation, Noblord. This kind of 3-1 bracket seems to be a lot where, you know, a lot of the North American underground of pro players that everyone knows is very good, but perhaps aren't the most super exposed. Chucky in there as well is perhaps the biggest name to stand out from that group.
Yeah, even, you know, you speak of those players, Racy and Ant stick out hugely, you know,
Exactly.
you know, and I've actually dipped into his stream quite often, and, you know, he's just another one of these players that everyone is fully aware of, but just hasn't really gone crazy in terms of breaking out, but looking pretty good so far.
Yeah, and I do want to just go back to Phenom's deck list as well, because he's rocking a 3-1, and we mentioned that he's bringing the very, very aggressive lineup. You can see at 3-1 that it's done very, very well for him. I think there's two key things to talk about there. Firstly, he's intelligently avoided bringing Paladin as part of his aggressive lineup, which has meant he's had to get a bit creative. As you mentioned, Hunter is coming in as what you said was the fourth deck. There's also that Evolve Shaman, which is an aggressive deck, but still slightly unproven at this point. But he needed to dodge Paladin because of all the hungry crab that's flying around. That can be a big blowout for you if you're bringing a Murloc Paladin as part of your aggressive package. Secondly, just the success of this aggressive lineup as a whole is showing that perhaps people have just gone too far down the control road, right? Once you've seen the Zoths and Cairns coming into people's decks, that's when a deck...
Whoa.
Yeah, that's when a deck that's just jamming one drops and hitting you in the face is going to get there more often than not.
Yeah, and just while we're getting ready for this first game we've got coming up for you guys of this round, we can check out some of the other matches that are going to be being played out. See PK Snow versus Watt, both 3-1s going at it with a Mage versus Taunt Warrior there. And then Racy and Rusty going at it as well. Rusty looking to play some kind of crazy priest, double free from Amber somehow.
I feel like Rusty has at least 2 and possibly 3 free from Ambers in his hand right now.
And also Racy has 0 health at this point. So you see Rusty there taking a win over Racy very, very quickly indeed. But in terms of these players now at 4-0, when you know, whichever players take this win, what kind of position are they in? And then vice versa with the players that lose this, how strong are they looking for the rest of the Swiss?
Well, we mentioned really like 5-0 is more or less job done. You can relax. When you get to 5-0, you very, very often go to 7-0 or 6-1 because you don't play tight after that point. You just relax, you play your natural game. That helps you pick up that 1 or 2 extra wins that you don't even really need, but it gives you that 100% security. When you fall back in, you know, particularly if Fenom was to lose this series, if he suddenly falls back to 3-2, that is a big drop. Yeah, the difference between 4-1 and 3-2 is just a massive difference going into the final round for the day. And every player just getting into this period overnight, they want to be in as comfortable a position as possible, because the fact that we've changed to now have this break where there's one final round of Swiss on the following day, that can be an incredibly tense situation to be in if your tournament life is on the line going to that overnight break.
Unfortunately, you have to go to bed and try not to think about it to a certain extent.
It's not easy.
It's definitely kind of rough. We can check out a little bit more on Stark while we're just getting the players ready for this game. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, he really is really impressive. He's in at 23 in terms of the ranking for the qualifier, but first career HGT appearance is fantastic. Open Cups, 15 points.
5 points every month. He just got there.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, you really can't argue with that. A lot of players playing Open Cups and don't get there, right? You know, they get second place, top 4, whatever. Get a few points, they play a few more cups, don't get the first place, and like, you know what? Fine. That'll just do for the month. But the players who just play relentlessly to just guarantee, I say guarantee, you're still going to win a cup, but you know what I mean? Just keep playing cups non-stop until they get those 5 points. I have full respect for, because that can get grueling with the length of some Open Cups.
Hey, you don't know. He might have just queued up that first Strive Wire every month, just nailed it, just high rolled a win off the first Strive Wire of the month every month and just picked up that 15. You don't know. But yeah, serious point. I mentioned before when we were talking about Amnesiac, kind of the mental endurance to just keep going, keep going, keep going. I've seen stories from players on Twitter who enter Open Cups, which, yeah, we haven't fully explained it, but the maximum you can get per month is 5 points for picking up
a first place finish.
Right, for picking up a first place in an Open Cup, and then you get 3 and 1 and so so on moving down. So I've seen a lot of players posting on Twitter like, oh, I just got my second place of the month in an open. Do I keep going? Do I really need the 5? Stark has given a very definitive answer to that, which is yes, he's getting that 5 every single month, and he has rode that momentum to a 4-0 now in this playoff.
Yeah, and we are ready to get into the first game of this series. We did. Fenom versus Stark. Fenom with the aggro druid, which we will talk about in 1 minute, because I feel like there's a lot to talk about with this list. And then Stark starting off with this Paladin list. Stark, if he wins this match, he is one very firm step closer to being able to be one of the, frankly, few in HCT history representatives in the championship from South America.
Right.
But Fenom and this druid list, I've been playing a lot of aggro druid.
And I have too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lists knocking around, even just one card change list, right?
Yeah.
Fenom's list is more than one card change, I would say. Like, tell us about the list. So
Well,
I'll let you talk about this.
So this particular build feels like the kind of build that we've seen people experimenting with Menagerie Warden thrown in as well, because it's playing
Sixo's been playing it recently,
so many powerful beasts in the mid game. It's got double Shell Shifter, double Druid of the Claw. It doesn't have Bittertide Hydra though, which is one of the big inclusions that you really want to have if you're playing that Menagerie Warden list. But apart from that, fairly standard in the early game. He's playing the 4 crab package, which I don't necessarily agree with all the time, but for this tournament meta, it seems pretty reasonable. That's 2 Hungry Crabs, 2 Galacta Crawlers. The other early minions, very, very standard. Vicious Fledgling in there. Then there is a Genzo the Shark for a little bit of gas in the end game, and then double Shell Shifter, double Druid of the Claw.
Yeah, and no Menagerie Warden, right?
No.
So it's just
That's what I said. It looks like that kind of
I
list.
just wanted to make sure the viewers.
No,
were
you're
aware.
right to do so. I probably wasn't as clear as I could have been about that, but it looks like that kind of list. But he's just left the Menagerie Warden out and said, hey, you know what? Shell Shifter is a 5-3 stealth. That just gets there. Druid of the Claw is a 4-4 charge. That just gets there. Like, these minions hurt. These minions are the kind of final pushes that I need to end the game. And one of the spots that he's given up to make room for that is the one-off swipe that we quite often see. He's just saying, well, these minions do that same amount of damage, charging a Druid of the Claw or putting a Shell Shifter in stealth, and then they can stick around on the board and have...
Sometimes they do that twice.
Exactly. Stick around on the board and just have additional upside after that.
Yeah, I know Firebat will be happy seeing a Druid of the Claw aggro druid list. He's a strong advocate of that card.
Good. Do you know how often this card does 8 damage or more in an aggro deck? Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Is my answer. But as we go into the opening turns here, Fenom actually ended up innovating out everything onto the board. Just everything he has minus the mark, and this is going to build into a mark turn next turn more than likely. This will allow for value trades from here. This option might change. Living Mana, okay, it's going to be mark. Gets the value trade, and I feel like as the aggro druid, you are in a bit of a dicey spot when you go this all in this early, because now he's saying these minions have to get me there. They have to do something.
I mean, what was he going to do really though in response to that? Is he just going to just play a 1-drop and hold on to the innovate for those 8 drops in his deck? Like, no, he doesn't have any. He's going to spew his hand. That's what this deck does.
He could have waited one more turn. He could have just played the Raven. At worst, your next turn is the Firefly into Flame Elemental.
Right.
But you generally, there are a lot of great draws you could get.
Sure.
Especially playing double Shell Shifter, double Druid of the Claw. It could have altered the game plan here, but he decided to just splurge it all onto the board, go all in on this.
Splurge.
Splurge is a good word.
It's also a very amusing word, Raven.
I'm here to amuse you and the world. So yeah, the Mark of the Lotus is just saying, okay, I'm kind of all in. I don't want to say all in. There is Living Mana in hand, so on turn 5 there's a refill opportunity. But kind of all in here. If the Paladin sticks me a little bit, this could be really dicey. But the Paladin has to do that, right?
Right.
With these minions, they're all reasonable life totals.
Oh boy.
Reasonable style of attack. Savage Roar is going to open up some pretty nice trades. Pretty clean trades as well.
Pretty nice trades with the face.
Yeah, I mean, one clean trade into the Stonehill is a nice trade.
The plural was a little bit unnecessary in this part.
Pretty nice trade. There you go.
Beautifully done.
Already on 7. I didn't even realize.
Yep.
Woof. Good job, Fenom. Phenom's just a guy that, playing this heavy of an aggro lineup feels just like a breath of fresh air in this tournament. And the fact he's just getting people, so it's like, I blinked 7 health.
It's just a nice palate cleansing aggro druid right now. Exactly what we've needed this whole time.
Yeah, needed something to refresh ourselves before more control decks come down. But already this Raven going to make a reasonable trade in, and now 3 health on Stark, this living mana. There is no Consecrate available here.
And Fenom, it 100% knows there is no Consecrate.
Yeah, it would have come down.
His board was miserable against Consecrate on the previous turn. It didn't happen, so he's just going to secure the lethal through any realistic defensive line that Stark can make, and this is going to be a quick 1-0 going down to Fenom.
Yeah, and this is going to be scary for Stark, to be honest. You know, getting hit that hard in game one definitely throws people off, right? You know, it really would. And when you know your opponent has a full lineup along those lines, maybe not as crazy as Aggro Druid. Aggro Druid is extremely strong at the moment.
Man, I love me some Aggro Druid.
Yeah, it's if you've not played it, just go and build it and play it. It's actually hilarious.
We'd be in bed by now if everyone had brought Aggro Druid to this tournament instead. Just look at that.
Here we go. It's a good deck. You see how fast that one went. We see the Warrior is actually banned from both players as well.
Pirate Warrior on one side and Quest Warrior on the other. I think you know, Quest Warrior is just very, very resilient against all of the aggressive decks that Fenom has, and Pirate Warrior just gets there when you've got as a kind of mid-rangey punishing lineup to punish control, as Stark has brought, then yeah, I mean, Pirate Warrior is just going to get there more often than not.
Yeah, and we've spoken a lot about Stark. We can check out a bit more information about Fenom. I feel we might have undersold him just a little bit, but fifth place at South by Southwest, the Onog
circuit.
Yeah, and then he had top 16 in Onog Pack South as well. So, you know, definitely, you know, a lot of good accolades to his name. Again, 11 points from Open Cups, but a flurry of points elsewhere. Is that correct? 3 points from ranked play? Is that just hit legend?
Hit legend 3 times?
I guess if you're getting the points from the Open Cups and you know you can get there, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you see there as well, Engineer for Vicious Syndicate, which if you don't know what they do a lot of data-driven work within Hearthstone in particular, you know, scouting out win rates, predicting the meta, as well as analyzing the meta and kind of coming up with what the best decks are. So, you know, I wonder how much of that data-driven approach he's used to decide that aggro is the best strategy, because I think a lot of players, even just on pure gut feeling, would come up with the same decision that aggro is the best strategy. But I wonder how much of that Vicious Syndicate backing has gone into this lineup construction.
Yeah, I think when we've talked about other players that are the Vicious Syndicate, say class specialists, for example, almost all of them are like, yes, of course I use the data that we all work on. You wouldn't work on that kind of data if you didn't believe in it and didn't enjoy actually that kind of approach to the game, right? You just wouldn't be that type of person. So I have no doubt that being that heavily involved in breaking down the meta every single month, being that close to it, has had a huge impact on his lineup and just his approach to the game in general, to be honest.
It would seem very foolish to have that wealth of information
like,
available
I'll be all right.
and then just turn it down. Yeah, I think, of course, Hot Meowth classically is a player that we've had a lot of experience with at Hearthstone Championship Tour. He worked with Vicious Syndicate at one point, not sure, 100% sure if he still does, but he, you know, openly admitted, as you said, yeah, I mean, this is a phenomenal resource that's at my fingertips. Why would I not use this data?
Yeah, while the players are getting ready, just to remind you guys, this is the Americas playoffs. We had Europe last weekend, in which just 4 amazing players have gone through, of course, to Shanghai, China. But next weekend, we have the Asia Pacific playoff coming up.
Coming up next weekend, across the ocean we go to the other side of the world, Hearthstone's Asia Pacific region. The best players in Asia Pacific will gather to begin their quest towards the Spring Championship. Among the world-class field are Samuel Tsao of Taiwan. A great performance in the Bahamas earned him a berth at Worlds.
I did it.
Now he's looking to qualify for his 2nd straight seasonal championship. Tom 60229 of Taiwan. After just missing qualifying for the Winter Championship, he's #1 in points this spring.
Tom 60229 has a long storied history.
And B787 of Japan, an emotional Winter Playoffs performance
B787 by the skin of his teeth
earned him a trip to the Bahamas. Now he's eager to take it to the next level.
I'm trying to step it up each time. So my next goal is to make it to Shanghai.
The Asia Pacific Winter Playoffs, next weekend on the 2017 Hearthstone Championship Tour.
Really looking forward to the APAC playoffs. Always a really interesting one for me, actually, because although we just progressively getting closer and closer to the scene and, you know, knowing the players more and more as we spend more time casting the tournaments.
Right.
Hearthstone Global Games has been fantastic for that as well. It's just always fascinating to me. Like, a lot of the players just bring, like, kind of strange stuff most of the time. I feel like it's the region that has the most creativity, I'll say, in terms of this, for better or worse, you know, one way or the other.
Right.
But I feel like the strength of the region, we see, like, for example, Malaysia in Global Games doing absolutely fantastic. I'm looking forward to next weekend a lot.
Yeah, I think the fascinating thing to me about APAC playoffs is particularly it's hard to get to know these players, you know, through their personality outside the game, right? Just because of language barriers and cultural differences and all these things that stand in the way. So I feel like the things that I've learned about APAC players just come through watching them express themselves in Hearthstone, which is really interesting to me because, you know, I come from a fighting game background, which is a very expressive game. Hearthstone's kind of hard to do that in.
Good word choice.
But I think Hearthstone's a hard game to do that in terms of, like, you know, speaking to people through your play style. But because we're forced to learn that way about the APAC region, like you said, the unique decks and individual play styles, it's just really super interesting to me to watch those things develop.
Yeah, and we are going to be getting to the next game of this series very, very soon. But while we're watching the Asia Pacific tease there for you guys, I noticed a bit of a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Full aggro lineup, and there's Quest Rogue in Stark's lineup that is, of course, not banned. How difficult for this for Stark, is this going to be?
Yeah, I mean, Stark has, you know, paid a little bit of lip service towards beating aggro with his Quest Rogue. He's got the Tar Creepers in there, but then his big security blanket is the Hungry Crabs that he's playing. And as we mentioned early on, Fenom has managed to dodge bringing an aggressive Paladin as part of his aggressive lineup. So those crabs aren't, you know, the Quest Rogue isn't going to have those just nut draws where you hit the crab and you win the game against Paladin available to them. They're going to have to find a way to actually contest the board very honestly with, you know, high quality minions, Fireflies early on, curve into Tar Creeper as best you can. And that's just a very low percentage out overall.
It's just hard.
Right, even if you have 3 shots at it with Quest Rogue, it's not that unlikely that it just loses all 3 times, which we're used to being in situations where we say, okay, he's got 3 unfavored matchups, but he only has to win 1 of them. That actually makes him a pretty solid favorite. Quest Rogue can be so miserable against aggro that that's often just not the case.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be the hurdle that Stark has to get over to win this series. We are just making sure the players are fully set up and ready to play this next game. But while we wait, we can check out some fun facts about the casters.
With the casters.
Fun fact about Kibler. I never eat lettuce. I hate lettuce. It's mostly the texture thing. It's like crunchiness.
I don't have an appendix. I got that taken out when I was 16.
Unfortunately, fun is not something I ever have in my day-to-day life. Most of my fun comes from sleep, I guess.
My parents actually used to sort of breed and like look after exotic animals. So I pretty much grew up like with all kinds of crazy stuff. If I go to the zoo and I'm like, seen those, had those.
The first time I actually ever did a Blizzard casting event, the Twitch chat started referring to me as Adele. Never mind, I'll find someone like you. I took it as a great compliment because Adele's fantastic, and if I have half the singing chops of Adele, then I'm doing just fine. Sometimes it lasts in love, but sometimes it hurts instead.
You weren't kidding. You can sing.
Cora can sing, actually, really well. And I sing a lot, badly, but I don't do it here because she puts me to shame.
Yeah. Can we just cancel the tournament and just have Cora serenade everybody for the next few hours? That seems like a plan.
It seemed pretty reasonable. Also, as well, I don't know about you, but I actually hadn't seen that video yet.
No, I hadn't.
I was actually like, what did we say for that interview? But
apparently, I said nothing. I'm just fundamentally uninteresting by the looks of things.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But we learned some key information about Kibler, which I think was quite important. She doesn't like lettuce. That must be a pain.
Here's an interesting fact about me. I have a phobia of mushrooms. Not I don't like mushrooms, they give me panic attacks. There you go, ladies and gentlemen.
I cannot believe you just released that fact to the world. I knew this a long time ago.
I don't care, like, people can bombard me with pictures and stuff on Twitter all they want. That doesn't affect me.
It doesn't actually bother you, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
But we see the players just getting ready. Looks like Stark just checking with an admin that everything is okay. And Fenom looks very, very focused indeed. This is a huge win for Fenom as well, because if he gets this win, because he's been paired, vice versa, we talk about start being paired down. If he gets paired up, then his tiebreaker, his tiebreaker is actually going to look better. So he's in a spot where potentially he's fighting for that tiebreak place, to be completely honest. So this is actually a huge buff for him, as it's almost like a nerf for Stark's potential tiebreaker going on later on.
It looks like we are just about ready to be heading into the game. I think our little interlude there with some technical issues took about 3 times as long as that actual opening Aggro Druid game, but hey, we're going to get back into it. Fenom is going to look to bank a couple more aggressive wins alongside that Aggro Druid, and with the Quest Rogue on the other side from Stark to prey upon, he's got every chance of doing so.
Yeah, it's really rough. I'm interested to see exactly as we get into this game right now how the Shaman can...
Now.
Fight. Can actually see if we see the Shaman versus the Quest Rogue matchup. We're interested in that one because it's the Shaman isn't just an aggro deck, right? It's not really as straightforward as I'm just going to get you. And maybe that's slow enough to lose to the Quest Rogue. I'm not sure.
It's still really, really tough because you can just spew such a wide board of minions.
You can smoot.
Yeah, I don't know what that word was. Primal Fin Totem coming down, Firefly coming out for a couple of bodies. Like, Quest Rogue just can't really interact with that kind of board state outside of Vanish. So you just get such incredible value out of Evolve without even really needing to hit your Doppelgangster, back it up with Bloodlust later on. Like, you just get so much threat of damage at all times. Like, the only real way I can see that matchup going well for Rogue is if they just get, of course, the Nuts Quest activation, which is always an asterisk, or if, the finishing blows of Evolve and Bloodlust just aren't drawn by Fenom, and then it just becomes that Shaman wet noodle fight where you just have no real power behind your minions.
Something I do love is I think we talked about in the back earlier is that it's like, his deck's all about token generation, board control, Bloodlust, Evolve, Stonehill Defender. It's just like, card's just good enough to put in any deck. And you're like, okay, well, I guess. I mean, it is a good card, but it's just hilarious the way this whole deck is built around this token idea. Than Stonehills.
So here's the thing, like I do take a little bit of issue. Like, I totally understand Stonehill's nuts, you put it in every deck, but I do find it very strange with the aggressive Murloc Paladins, where it's just, Murloc on 1, buff your Murloc on 2, War Leader on 3, and then, oh, okay, you beat my first push, here's a Stonehill Defender. Like, that feels a bit weird. In a token deck, a deck where you're trying to protect 1/1s and 1/2s and keep them around on the board long term, a slightly irritating 1/4 Taunt is actually a pretty effective minion to put in the way of that.
Similar to Aggro Druid playing
exactly the point I was going to lead on to, yeah. Oh, it's fine. I mean, that's just synergy right there.
We just got it. We're one mind.
There you go.
One terribly confused mind.
One self-loathing mind.
See a few of Phenom's results so far in this tournament as well, taking wins over WTY Bill, which we saw right at the beginning of the day play, and then over Nostum as well, who's a very well-recognized player within the North America scene.
Right.
So,
if you did not catch the early series and you're not quite familiar with this deck, why we're calling it Evolve Shaman, it's playing the basic 2-card combo of Doppelgangster and Evolve, and that's basically what it's trying to hit together. Doppelgangster puts 3 5-mana minions onto the board for 5 mana, essentially. They're 3 2/2s, but they each cost 5. So then you go ahead and evolve that, you get 3 6-drops for 6 mana. Average stats for that ends up being somewhere around 30 total stats across your 3 minions. 14.3, 15.06 in total, which is just a ridiculous amount of value.
Yeah, especially when Phenom has the coin, so you can actually just pop that out on turn 5, just even earlier. It's already a powerful combo as it is, but just throwing it out there on turn 5 is absolutely insane. So you see Stark here just having to play a War Leader, and this is one of the, kind of the awkward things about this deck sometimes, where you are just dropping War Leader onto the board. Primal Fin Totem, though. This is a nightmare. I complain all the time about these like card totems, if that makes sense.
The 3 health Shaman totems.
Yeah, exactly. The totems that you actually put in your deck as opposed to hero power. And they're an absolute nightmare, because already this 1/1 is a pain to deal with. And then how do you do the 3 to the totem before it's kind of already got more than enough value for the card, right? Because bear in mind, it's even still reducing the thing from below that's in hand. So you're getting so much just instant value from that one turn you drop it down.
Noble sack here for Stark. Basically, Stark was just trying to build as awkward a board position as he could to try and get something to stick around to challenge the 0-3. He could have taken Redemption there, but Redemption would have revived a 1-1, added the extra attack of a 1-1 to the board, whereas Noble sack adds the extra attack of a 2-1 to the board instead. So Noble sack just a stronger option in that position. It was all made a complete formality by that Maelstrom portal draw, and now this Primal Fin totem is just going to run wild all over this game, Raven.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, just dealing with this is just an absolute nightmare. And the second you don't deal with it, all it does is compound the problem, right? Because then your opponent's gained another turn to go wider onto the board. And then suddenly, this is how the deck can really come out of nowhere and take wins. The deck does run double Bloodlust. So it's the age-old stuff like, you know, before and with Thunder Bluffs, right? In previous metagames where you just put random stuff onto the board that aren't really even true minions and then Bloodlust game, you know, out of absolutely nowhere. So there's multiple ways that Fenom can make pushes here. Hex is going to be nice if he actually just wants to hold on to this board and hex off this 5-4, but he does just have Jade Lightning that lines up much better. And you can save Hex for example, Spite Ridge Steed. And just already get rid of that one. Like, basically, one of the few minions in the deck, in the Paladin deck, that's going to cause you a huge problem here.
Yeah, I wonder whether Coin Totem here is ever worth it, just because, you know, not pressing Totem this turn is potentially just a discount that's completely lost into the ether forever for the thing from below. Looks like it is going to happen, because, yeah, Totem this turn takes it down to 3, you can Totem again, drop it to 2 the next turn. Like, it's I struggle to see where that coin is being used for value is basically the point I'm trying to make here.
There's no coin involved, right?
Right.
So who cares?
Might as well just use it. He actually got to nail the healing totem here as well, which incentivized him to trade in and just remove some of the value from the board. Spike Ridge Steed is going to be played out of potential necessity here for Stark to finally answer that Primal Fin totem off the board, but the Hex, of course, in hand for Fenom.
Yeah, also, not really a board you want to tower him.
No.
So a lot of the time you're like, I'm okay buffing some of my opponent's minions, I can use mine to trade. No, when it's Hex, clear the minion, empty board, your opponent's playing a token deck effectively, and then you buff them all and potentially get bloodlusted down for game.
Look how irritating this board state is. Like, even if you drew Consecration here, you'd feel like you were wasting a Consecrate as to how worthless this board state is. But yet this is going to kill you at some point.
I think Stark would kind of wish he could waste a Consecrate this turn, you know.
Absolutely. He would waste the hell out of that Consecrate.
I wish I could
Raven.
feel bad about playing Consecrate this turn.
Yep.
In fact, I have a War Leader, which I actually feel worse. This is rough. And especially because at any moment there could just be a Bloodlust. And I know you can't always play around Bloodlust, but when the deck is built to be a Bloodlust deck to a large extent, you do kind of have to think about it a lot of the time.
Bloodlust would actually be one off in this position if it was just Bloodlust with no other follow-up damage, so he doesn't have to be terrified of that situation just
You'd
yet.
still take the Bloodlust though, right?
Oh, yeah.
You bank Bloodlust damage whenever you think it's going to be the most damage you're going to get.
Right. So Fenom now with the 2 Thing from Belows in his hand, even though they're discounted, he can potentially now evolve those, into 2 7-mana minions if he wants to, but he might be considering that kind of line just a little bit too all-in against potential quality plays from Stark. We'll see how he chooses to ration this out. The second Evolve being picked up now gives him so many ways to navigate this. He can Stonehill and play one of his Things from Below and then evolve once to get a 4-drop and a 7-drop out of those 2 Taunt minions that he just played alongside the rest of the board, and then just have a second Thing from Below plus evolve as backup later, even when he draws his Doppelgangster. He might just decide to go full greed and say, hey, I'm happy with the status quo right now. I'm not going to jam and evolve until I draw that Doppelgangster, which with a Manatide totem on the board is going to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, having this many good options is normally the sign of the game's going your way. And also as well, when there's I can drop a 2-mana Thing from Below, but it evolves into a 7-mana minion.
Pretty
If I
sick.
was Stark, I would be angry. I'd be like, this is not how this card should work. Look, he paid 1 mana. It should be a 2-drop. That's
Oh boy.
case. There's Bloodlust. And there's Consecrate though, but is it going to be enough? It is iffy qualities as well. And I do not blame Stark for doing so at this point.
Yeah, now Bloodlust will be lethal. Stark can see that there are a bunch of cards that have been sat dead in the hand for quite a few turns from Fenom.
Fenom can't believe it either. He's like,
He knows that Bloodlust would have been one short on the previous turn, so he can still give his opponent credit for having Bloodlust in hand. He just absolutely has to pull the trigger there on the Bloodlust.
Yep.
On the Quality Consecrate, sorry.
Psychotron plus hero power is fine. Could drop the 5/5 as well. After seeing that Equality Consecrate literally off the top, you're probably okay with just I'll say overcommitting to the board. I don't think it counts as overcommitting when you're playing a token deck. Like, it's literally what you do to win the game. But I wouldn't mind it at all. Wouldn't mind Psychotron just going down there, because at this point you've just seen the clear. Now you just rebuild and say, how much do I need to hit Bloodlust, right?
I feel like making some 6s and 7s this turn, Raven. You've got 2 Evolves in your hand. You've just seen Equality Consecrate. Like, how good is your opponent's 1 card going to be? We can see it's actually pretty solid. It's a Tarim. But when your opponent is down to 1 card, you should most often just switch your brain off in terms of playing around particular outs from your opponent, because they're just most likely not going to be there. And yeah, Fenom agrees. And that is a 6-drop right there, Raven.
Well, the Phenom's like, that's okay. Just a casual Jaime, one of the most powerful cards in the game still.
It's just a Mana Wraith as well, just a Troll Stark to the max.
Yeah, I can't play Curator and Hero Power this turn. What do I do?
That's real. That Mana Wraith just killed a 1/1.
I didn't even take damage.
I know.
That Divine Shield. And can attack again. It's a good card. He's going to go for the Tarim now.
Yep.
Juice the power down on the board, buff up one of his little Murlocs there to kill it. Ooh, excuse me. Clear off one of those minions. And now at least kind of contest this high main. But the high main is going to do exactly what Fenom wants to do in his deck as well. It's not only that high main's just a great card, the fact it dies and generates tokens in a Bloodlust deck, you're like, okay.
What does Hyena cost? I'm going to say 2. It just sounds right. Yeah, it's 2.
It's a weird thing for you not to know.
I haven't had Hyenas back in my hand too often.
2 2/2s.
Yeah.
Mana 2/2s.
Right. It's what I would have predicted, but yeah, makes sense. Important to know,
I
of course,
would've
with
got
Evolve in the
that.
mana. It's also like, I wasn't sure because they recently changed a bunch of the tokens' mana cost as well. I say recently, like within the last 12 months or so, so I wasn't sure if the high main Hyenas got caught in that at all.
Yeah. No, they're 2 mana.
Okay.
Now Phenom, if he wants. Is there a world you don't evolve again? Maybe you do. If you evolve, the problem is if you just trade in, like Tarim just gets value trades. Or you can do what I think Phenom's planning to do: fill the board, say, well, you're not going to clear it, and then smash Bloodlust next turn.
That's also fair.
Yeah. So you just feel bad about just mindlessly trading into the Tarim, not even killing it. And then what if, you know,
He's evolving again.
ooh,
Ravenhold Assassin, and he got his Mana Tide back, but not the most oppressive looking board state I've ever seen, I've got to see.
the Ravenhold as well.
Oh, baby.
8/5. Still, get him. This is very tricky indeed from both players. I feel like that Mana Tide was actually clutch from Fenom, because both players being down to no cards, I feel like it benefits the Paladin more overall, because some of the draws are just so much more powerful than drawing a Firefly, for example. So that Mana Tide, just for even just one additional draw this turn, is pretty huge.
It's true. I do feel like that the second evolve there was just a little bit suspect. I was right on board with the first one, like I said it at the time. But the second one, it didn't really feel like it was going to advance his board state that much. Like, he made a bunch of 2-drops, as you can see, out of his totems and 1/1s, which are never going to make, like, massively oppressive board states. And if there was, you know, a Consecrate or a Primordial Drake coming out from Stark, then yes, your 1-drops and totems get nuked. There's a very high chance your 2-drops just get nuked by the same thing anyway, so it didn't really feel like you were even protecting your board state against anything, and now you've left yourself in a spot where you've got 2 really terrible cards in your deck now in Doppelgangster.
Yeah, a lot of the time, there are some instances where just Doppelgangster is enough of a threat to play because of Bloodlust, but this is going to be very rough, especially now Fenom knows that Primordial Drake is available. He saw Curator's on the board, he drew the card, it is in hand now 100%. And now what's he going to do about it? We did see the series that I believe Fred and Kibble just cast that had, this style of Shaman got through a Primordial Drake as well and continued to carry on. But I feel like because that taunt was exactly Curator from Stark, he has enough juice to continue to go now. He can play Finger behind the Drake. Can potentially, either adapt it or just do it afterwards, after Finja trades into minions, because guess what? The Shaman isn't exactly not going to generate minions going forward, so Finja will always get a kill and potentially generate a few more Murlocs as well. So I feel like this could be the tipping point here. All off the back of this Curator. Not even the heal totem. It's going to help push this minion out of range of the Drake. It's going to be a clean kill.
Yeah, and the Primordial Drake is just going to be so punishing here. Fenom kind of started his turn by saying, okay, all of these kind of 3-2 minions that I have hanging around, 3-2s and 2-2s, etc. I'm just going to trade those in, because that happens anyway. They're going to die to that Primordial Drake that I know my opponent has. But maybe he acted a little bit too quickly. Maybe that was the best Bloodlust he was ever going to get.
I did wonder, actually, because you just know it's there, right? Like, when are you ever playing Bloodlust this game? What do your draws even have to be at this point on just Bloodlust?
I just don't know.
I'm gonna look at the deck list in more detail. 1 second.
All right, Raven is scouting. Stark here is going to choose how he wants to deal with this board state, and it looks like he's going to choose to take down the Aya cleanly with the 2 trades that he had available, which is going to allow the Primal Fin Totem to pick up 1 more Murloc, but there exactly is one of those terrible cards in the deck that I mentioned, and it's terrible because Fenom chose to use both Evolves a little bit aggressively. The second one for sure is the one that I have a big question mark over. The first one definitely felt right to me, but now he's just going to hope that these 3 2-2 bodies are able to get there in terms of damage.
Couldn't find anything.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
it's going to be rough, I'm not going to lie to anyone.
He hasn't slipped a Yogg into this list or anything.
Unless he's just not included on the list we've got,
Okay.
then no, I very
Do you
much
want to take
doubt
another
it.
quick minute and just count, make sure there's 30
Count every
cards?
I trust Fenom.
Okay.
Trust him. But now Spite Raged, let's be honest, at this point, just drop it down on whatever you want. Although there is a thought. Stark's probably got a good idea that's Bloodlust in hand.
Yeah.
It's one card that stuck around for no other reason than it being Bloodlust.
Right,
You've seen both Evolves as well,
exactly.
which is key. Probably just need to do the quick math here and see if Spite Ridged like adds up to anything cleaner, depending on what minion you play it on. Or even if you need it this turn, maybe you don't. Can just trade that Murloc off into a 3-1. You could preemptively set up Finja. Could play the Megasaur as well. You don't have to worry about double Bloodlust. We have seen RDU win a game that I think we cast last weekend with double Bloodlust to finish.
Yeah, but again, you know, I make the same point as I made in the situation pushed back the other way where he was staring at 1 card. Like, are you really going to play around 2 card combinations that aggressively when your opponent has 1 card in hand?
No, but I just think, you know, if it's a choice between Spite Ridged or Finja, you could just say, actually, I would just never die.
Sure.
And just play Spite Ridge.
I buy it.
Okay, so that's Murlocs. Riding a dinosaur that spits poison. That looks things now.
Why are you so obsessed with Spike Ridge, Steve?
Because I imagine it in my mind. A tiny Murloc riding a dinosaur that spits poison.
Okay.
Truly terrifying. We're going to see the Bloodlust now get used. I think this is another instance of, okay, maybe I could have Bloodlusted earlier for a better value. I'm definitely Bloodlusted now. Like, this is the best I've got, and Fenom shows off the power of Bloodlust there by just hacking through all those minions, all that board. But can he do it another 2 to 3 times?
Yeah,
I feel like that's
because
what he's going to have to do.
now he is left with the proverbial wet noodles, and Paladin themselves are just got endless late game plays to come down and contest this. And with 2 Evolves and 1 Bloodlust now gone, the density of his draws in terms of turning all these small annoying tokens into legitimate attacking threats is so low. For Fenom now, there is just that 1 Bloodlust left that can really end this game. Aya has already been played, which is another of the biggest threats in the deck. Both Thing from Belows have already been played, which are 2 of the biggest threats in the deck. He's already played 1 Mana Tide, which can help pick him up more resources. Like, he just has small, annoying 1 and 2 mana idiots left in his deck.
I mean, like, Stonehill into YIs into 10-10.
That sounds like a plan. Let's do that.
I'm not even, like, completely joking or anything.
Neither am I.
I think something along those lines is what Fenom needs. Oh, Alakir could help, could push the extra damage.
Stonehill into Alakir.
Yeah, sorry,
right.
Stonehill
Yep.
into Alakir, of
Yep.
course. Yeah, I'm just thinking of things that Stonehill can get. They're actually powerful enough, because I believe that even a Thing from Below is not good enough at this point in the game to do anything. You need
Absolutely not.
Kind of crazy. Flame Tongue gonna help push some extra damage here.
Gets the Taunt Totem as well to conceal or to protect his Taunt Totem. Protect his Flame Tongue Totem, which means he's going to be able to
And this
freely
Primal Fin
drop
too.
it onto the board. And the Primal Fin totem as well, yeah. You've spoken at length about how much you love these 3 health special effect totems from Shaman.
Fan playing them. Don't like playing against them.
You were like baby raging super hard wanting Flame Tongue to get nerfed at one point.
Should have been.
All right, Ray. All right.
Look how good this card is.
Okay. Flame Tongue can't hurt you anymore.
2 mana 4/3.
You're safe. I'll protect you.
2 mana 4/3.
2 mana Korkron Elite was the
Exactly.
mantra that I think originally came out from Chucky when he put it way back in Mech Aggro Shaman, I believe, was the deck in question at the time.
Wearing Zapomatic as
Yeah.
well. GG. Okay. Well, it's going to be some good trades, and even now the positioning of the Flame Tongue means that are going to be some... see, there you go, nerfed. Perfect. 2 mana 0/1, I can get behind that as well. But yeah, it just means at least the Finge is taking damage. So then you can potentially get a good trade afterwards.
He's inadvertently played around Ragnaros Lightlord just a little bit as well by making the Finger take damage trading into the minion. I don't know whether that was something in his mind, but it's something that's going to work out quite well for
I
him.
was talking about good Stonehills on the Fenom side.
Yeah.
Stark's rocking the Paladin Stonehills. This Stonehill follows the light. Tyrion and Wicker Flame, even if those were terrible options, second-rate Bruiser isn't bad in itself. But yeah.
Yeah, Tyrion all obviously fantastic. I'm just not sure how much you need another massive 8-drop in your hand right now. So
I think
it's between the other two, and yeah, second-rate Bruiser being picked up here, it was debatable to take the Divine Shield for me because of the fact that with Flame Tongue in play, like the Divine Shield just being an extra minion that needs to attack into it as opposed to just stats that the Flame Tongue totem can manipulate had value, but the 4/5 still effectively requires a lot of trading from this board state, even with the Flame Tongue.
I think the kicker was as well, there was 7 mana available this turn. Like, do you really want to get Tyrion and not play anything else this turn,
exactly.
right? Yeah, you know, you just want to just dump everything on the board. Because I'm pretty sure Stark's hitting the point now where if he clears this board one more time, he wins. Like, there is not another refill coming out here.
Cleared.
No. I mean, yeah, okay, but did manage to clear it one way or the other.
And you saw Fenom just kind of throw his hands up just a little bit at the fact that he drew Firefly this turn, but honestly, what's he expecting to draw? He's kind of drawn everything else at this point, so he made his big push early, Stark was able to survive it, and it's just kind of Firefly quality minions that are left in the deck now.
Not sure what he's expecting to, but maybe he was hoping for that Yogg.
Just not in the
this
deck.
Magical 31st card Yogg.
Oh, please, Lord, let me have misclicked and put Yogg in my deck.
Then we'll be having a whole different discussion.
We would, yeah.
And you're going to continue to get value.
I wonder how many Murlocs are left. This isn't a Murloc-heavy list that Stark is running. He might be down to the
there you
bare
go.
bones. Precisely 0.
Didn't even have bones. Just down to the bears. Ragnaros looks like it's pretty safe. I mean, let's be honest. True Silver, Ragnaros, close your eyes, pick one. But
Yeah, I feel like we jammed the 8/8 here. He can clear enough of the board state
an
that
8/8,
no
right?
one card is a threat to him. No, Stark disagrees. He's going to go True Silver. Interesting, I guess.
wait, for an 8/8, I don't care about the health.
Yeah.
Get him next
Right,
time.
exactly. Like 8/8 on the board, like represent an aggressive threat, and then the True Silver can follow that up with, essentially charge as a weapon on the following turn. Just start going aggressive instead.
I think Rag was the correct play if you wanted to force the concede timer on your opponent. But
Fair.
you know what I mean? If you're like, I actually just want this game over right now. I did say Stonehill White Eyes. There's a chance Phenom's going to stick in the game. And with no more Murlocs, Finger is just a 2/2 Murloc now. Aldor Peacekeeper can be used to... I mean, is there any point in using that, actually? You're not really saving too much value.
Not
You can just
really.
you can just hero power Rag. The Tidecaller just kills the White Eyes. Everything
Right.
else can go into the Stonehill. You can just use the weapon for the Stonehill if you want. You can actually trade in a manner that leaves the Tidecaller alive.
Yeah, I feel like you just trade through this naturally, and then if your opponent gets the 1 in 9 next turn and just tears the Storm Guardian straight off the top, then you
Aldor,
just
that
save
bad
the
boy.
Aldor for that. It just makes so much more sense.
Storm Guardian, 5 mana 10/10. That is not following the rules. Aldor Peacekeeper will deal with this.
I'm sure that the card counter said 8, and then 1 extra card went in the deck, and now it says 7. I'm not sure that's accurate.
Thinking.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Flame Tongue's a good card, but it's not that good. Okay, you can stay at 3 health if that's the job it's got to do. Stark does even it up against Phenom. Continues to at least battle for his spot with this series overall, and potentially going to a 5-0 lead in the switch.
Yeah, and I just have many questions about that second evolve. It seemed very, very strange to me. He went from a board that was vulnerable for Consecrate and Primordial Drake to a board that was vulnerable to Consecrate and Primordial Drake, except he just didn't have a high main anymore. And like, yes, his high main was a 3-3 to start with, but it still had those 2 hyenas inside, which of course could be popped open if the Conch or Primordial Drake came down. But when you're evolving 1s into 2s, you have to get pretty fortunate to dodge that 2 health range in the first place. And you saw from that point, he picked up Doppelgangster, he picked up Firefly. You know, these are minions that he would have loved to be jamming alongside that second evolve, just didn't have the gas anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough match, or game, sorry, overall for Fenom. And just while we're getting ready for the next game, we've maybe not discussed it as much as we did last weekend, because we were talking about some of the one of the players who got quite high, but the Tavern Hero program, I know Froden and Kibble were talking about it a little bit earlier. We see WTY Bill as one of the players, actually, which feels weird because it's like, oh, Tavern Hero, who played at championships last season. You're like, well, if you want to qualify through that way, it's kind of great. But in general, it is pretty cool. So check this out. So throughout day 1, we've seen some Hearthstone enthusiasts gathering throughout the Americas. Let's look at some of the fans gathered in Las Vegas. Very happy indeed. Nevada, across the equator we go to find some more in Lima, Peru, and some folks in America as well, Georgia, showing off their Hearthstone artwork as well. So some cool pictures coming out there. Hearthstone community still loving it as this Swiss continues on, and all the cheers as well. You know, control matchups, they seem to love it. They seem to love it.
Control matchups just bring out all the hype from the crowds.
All the best, actually. As these players get ready now.
You totally couldn't tell you were reading that, by the way.
No, it was very genuine. I think it was pretty obvious. I did not prep this voiceover work.
There's a reason why Cora does them now.
There is. We should have wheeled her on. I don't know why we need to wheel her on, though. We should have brought her on for that one. It's because I was trying to line it up with the video.
That did seem hard. I did not envy your position.
Next time, Sol, if this is your
I'll give it a bash.
Yeah,
I'll give it a bash. I'll knock it out, don't worry.
And then knowing you, you'll just do better.
Yeah.
But we are going to get ready to get into this game now. Fenom locking in the Shaman again, and Stark on this Jade Druid.
Ooh.
Kind of an awkward matchup, actually. Swipe doesn't really get you there versus a lot of minions that aren't 1 health.
Jade Idol Innovate Aya might just get you there, though. That seems pretty spicy.
True. There's hexes in this list, though.
There are, that's true. And the Aya is going to go away looking for something to innovate just that little bit quicker, picks up the Wild Growth as well, which would have paired perfectly with the Aya, but of course he opened up the extra card slot to allow him to land that Aya and just gets it back anyway. Best of both worlds for Stark in this position.
All part of the plan. Wild Growth is looking nice there, but Fenom now not having the hope. He might just be like, okay, I need a minion, Maelstrom.
I like it.
Yeah, kill the 1/1, at least generate something.
I actually
you are playing a generally token aggressive style deck.
Right.
You do want something on the board, especially because if your opponent hero powers on turn 2 to deal with the minion, you're kind of okay with that because they're not ramping, so you can continue to battle to the board. Good old Leponome.
PTSD. Wild Growth comes down. Innovate Aya is most likely going to be the play next turn, but now, as you can see, Fenom at least has a platform to build from. If he hits Totem there and he just rolls the 1/1, then the 1/1 on board just trades it out. He never starts building a platform. White Eyes versus Thing from Below #2. Having 2 Thing from Belows in hand does actually feel very good because you get that immediate feeling of every totem you press immediately discounting for that same amount of mana you spent. So you're essentially generating free totems over time. But White Eyes coming down a turn sooner, potentially on 5 to follow this up after the Jade Lightning, as well as just being a huge threat to generate the 10/10 afterwards. Hexing the Aya now, not even going to go for the Jade Lightning on curve, just going to say that's the biggest threat you're going to have to offer. I'm just going to hex that and move forward.
Yeah, I do like it. This just negates any shenanigans and really puts a stopper on Stark's opening here. Double Jade Lightning. Is Fenom playing the same deck? Like, you look at this hand and you're like, what happened? This doesn't look like the same way.
Well, his hand was very much like this in the first few turns of the previous game. He got a bit of a quicker start with the Primal Fin totem.
Yeah.
But he had the chunky stuff. He had the Thing from Belows early, he had Jade Lightning early, and then he just drew all of the power plays in his deck within the first 10 to 15 cards, and then just petered out completely after that.
Yeah, it just looks kind of weird when you're thinking about, Primal Fin totems, you're setting up for Bloodlusts. double Jade Lightning, White Eyes Aya. You're like,
Right.
These are not really the cards I expected. I mean, don't get me wrong, White Eyes is a pretty good card in itself. Well, once it dies, it will shuffle a 5-mana 10/10 into the deck for Fenom. But already, you know, you mentioned about the thing from below, still 6 mana.
I know.
You really don't want it to be 6 mana going into turn 6. You do have Aya though, which isn't bad. Even Flame Tongue gonna get some value here. So even if there's a Flame Tongue Jade Lightning. So Fenom does have some options, and Stark kind of has the opposite.
And I think the decision from Fenom to take the White Eyes over the thing from below was kind of influenced by this call as well, where he just looked at his hand and said, I don't really see myself pressing Totem too often over the next few turns. So I'm just going to have the 5-drop to play on 5, curve it into Aya. Then maybe after that point, I start to go Totem, Jade Lightning over the next couple of turns. Then my thing from below starts to come into play later. Maybe I even pick up the Evolve by that time as well.
Yeah, also just the health toll of White Eyes is just kind of great. Obviously the same from Thing from Below, but it's like you're playing the Thing from Below how you would play it anyway at this point in the game, actually sooner. And you've got a chance at the 5-mana 10/10 a little bit later on. Stark is just gonna do what he can here. Just gonna go for the Gadget Zan into the Scales. Cycles 1 card, swipe gonna be nice.
He coined it too, so he cycled 2. He coined the
sorry, you
Scales,
did coin it, yeah.
Right.
So he has the Tar Creeper available for the later turns as well. So definitely got some more options, some more defensive tools, but already Phenom's just slowly but surely creeping onto this board. It's not the explosive opening. The deck doesn't really specialize in a truly explosive opening, to be honest, outside Primal Fin sticking.
Coin Primal Fin into Primal Fin. That's basically the one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not like Phenom's slow start, so to speak, is a huge deal, especially against Jade Druid. So yeah, just starting to stick a few bits and bobs to the board. And having Aya as well, just to spread across a little bit there, especially after a Jade Lightning or two.
Yeah, and I think
okay for him.
Sorry, part of the motivation behind Stark's slightly inefficient Auctioneer turn on the previous turn was that he wanted to really try and interrupt that Aya turn. He didn't want to have to deal with another huge threat coming down. So he said, okay, if you want to play Aya this turn, that means you have to trade your 5/5 on board into my 5/5 because, you know, I have an Auctioneer that just beats your board right now. So he managed to interrupt, buy himself a little bit of time, but you know, Fenom had the clean play with the Jade Lightning to be able to take care of it, start ramping up his Jades, which now with Lightning number 2 and Aya in hand are going to turn his Jades into significant attacking threats as well. Fenom just throws up his hands like, wait, you roped swipe that turn. Yes, Fenom, Stark is taking his time. This is a very important series of Hearthstone. He is going to consider all the options.
Yeah, this is almost a qualifying match for Stark at this point. Also, as well, it was a bit funny. It feels like, oh, he had the swipe. It's like, Fenom, it's 10-7.
Yeah.
He's drawn some cards. He's okay to have swipe against your token deck. And to be honest, I'd be kind of happy swipe's gone. Right, because it was swipe used on a 5/5 and a totem.
Right.
Sick. Because when you're playing Primal Fins later, you don't want them to just die. So certainly they can be much more difficult to deal with for the Jade Druid here. Fenom has a few options, but I struggle to not look at Aya. There's nothing to get true value from Jade Lightning and the Jade Claws. I kind of know where you're going with this straight away. Jade Lightning and the Jade Claws are a good combination, but not when you just Jade Lightning face for no reason.
There, ladies and gentlemen, was your entry of Raven laughing like a child on air for no reason.
There was a reason.
There was a reason, yeah. I'll give you that one.
Okay, so Aya's going to be the play. Pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy going on yet. Stark, on the other hand, has some tough choices here.
Yeah, he does. Second Auctioneer is in hand. That's looking more likely to be a play on turn 9 or turn 10 if he's able to pick up a Wild Growth and really get there. He still has just enough health to be playing around with at this point, but he doesn't have great ways to contest this board state. Tar Creeper is about as good as it gets right now. He can jam a Jade Blossom alongside that, but that's about as good as it gets unless he wants to spend this turn nourishing and just drop the Tar Creeper for just a slight little annoyance to this board position.
Yeah, I think I like settling for a slightly worse off turn here with the Tar Creeper, and I do like the Jade. Just because it does ramp you up to 10 as well. So it opens up potential for this Nourish, or more potential for this Nourish, or Gadget Zan next turn, depending on what's drawn. And you know what? It's one, like, not great turn. Tar Creeper still does work against Aya. To potentially get a very, very strong turn next turn. And ramping these Jades is going to be important. You actually do need to end the game here. those things for below is 5 mana. I just feel bad for Fenom.
So Bloodsail, Flame Tongue, and Jade Lightning here would enable a clear that preserves the Aya, preserves the main body of the Aya. If the Patches is going to appear on the right-hand side of the board as we see it, so then the Flame Tongue could be placed between the 2/2 and the then Patches. Use that to trade through the Tar Creeper, Jade Lightning the 3/3. That definitely looks like a viable line to me.
So you could use the claws instead with the Flame Tongue and just generate an additional Jade.
You could.
And start
That works
stacking
too.
them up. Mainly because the minion on the board is Aya, right? So you can create a 3/3, and then Aya's going to die into a 4/4.
Right.
Start stacking up that way, and then just save the Flame Tongue, because the extra damage from Aya, like, yeah, well, from the Flame Tongue on Aya, it's nice, but you could just save that a little bit later on. Looks like he's going to go for the Flame Tongue. This utilizes all your mana, and he's very clean. Oh, he's okay. Never mind. He's not going to Jade Lightning.
So I'm going to Jade Lightning is actually just going to trade out the 4/2 Jade on board right now, I believe, and then preserve his Aya just to play around any more potential Primordial Drake kind of nonsense from Stark coming out to deal with this board state. And I think we've seen him be very, very concerned, and quite rightly so, in multiple games about this card, Primordial Drake. That second evolve that I talked about a lot, that was fear of Primordial Drake. That's what made him do that. This exact play from Fenom, where he trades off his 2 health minion and preserves 3 health minions in play, that's giving a nod exactly to this card as well. And look at the reaction when Primordial Drake comes down. I think I'm getting a feeling that Fenom is not a fan of this card.
Not at all, no. At least he kind of planned for it, though.
Yeah?
And that's pretty key. Now the Jade Lightning, holding the Jade Lightning as well was just more flexible. Because, well, you can Jade Lightning face if you want. You know, if a taunt comes up late for a start, push extra damage, but also...
You can Jade Claw's face too.
Not if there's a taunt.
It's true.
There you go.
I'll give you that.
So the Jade Lightning, you know, is going to help. And it is going to help get through this Primordial Drake. If he wants to, he can just use the 5 attack from Aya and the 3/1. I wonder, do you actually... Is this the turn you just go in?
The big question, I mean, the only way that Druid is going to deal with a board that has 2 7-drops and everything else on it is Yogg. And Stark does not play Yogg in his deck. So my answer to that is a definitive yes. Let's just jam this and get the party started.
Yeah, I agree. Because as well, the Jade from Aya is just big enough to evolve into a decent minion as well.
4/4 turning into a 5-drop?
Yeah. So I'm okay with that, personally. You clear the minion, you create an awkward board. Yeah, I'm pretty good here.
He can wait 1 turn if he wants to as well. Like, Jade Lightning is just really, really efficient in this position. So he could choose to just try and hold on and get max value out instead. But yeah, I like this play. I was playing Devil's Advocate, just watching Fenom think, but this is the play I see. Devil's Apricot, sorry.
Yeah, because...
Wow, he doesn't evolve!
Is he open to soak some damage, maybe?
Maybe.
So he can trade evolve? So, about your point then...
He just sets up lethal without the evolve here anyway, is the one thing that I can consider. So he was
why risk it?
Choosing not to do it, but of course there's so many defensive options still available for the opponent. Second Primordial Drake, both Feral Rages, second Earthen Scales.
Why Druid's so good at the moment.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
Feral Rage still staying in rotation, plus Earthen Scales, and then just Drake being a great card in general. So all tools that allow Druid to actually outlast a lot of aggro decks. But yeah. The benefit here is unless Stark goes for the Feral Rage hero power into a 5/5, then the board is as is anyway, right?
Right.
He can cash in, if he's happy with this much damage, he can cash it in, he can weapon and then lightning and then evolve. Or even not, if he's just like, you know what, I just don't even need evolve this game. I will save evolve for the odd scenario in which Druid starts playing equality and can actually clear this board, or I draw, you know, Doppelgangster, for example, and just like, do I even need this card this turn? Are we just doing it for the fun?
Yeah, it's worth pointing out. I mean, it's kind of a meme, but whenever you have a totem or any 1-drop on the board, anytime you evolve, you have a 1 in 80 chance of hitting Doomsayer. Which, if you're in a position where you're as far ahead as Fenom feels he is right now, that is a legitimate thing to consider and try and play around. So we might be seeing Fenom here say, hey, you know what? This board state just gets there. I feel no need to evolve and potentially ruin myself. But nope, just as I say that, looks like the evolve is finally going to come down here. But there are 4 of those potential. There are 4 potential Doomsayers. 4 1 in 80s there that could have hit that Doomsayer.
I want to see the odd relationship between the 2/3 bartender Tauren healing up and then Bomb Squad.
To Tauren.
Yeah, and then Bomb Squad just going, nope, back down.
Yep.
Although, let's look at this though. Pyros, really good card considering Phenom's hand is empty at this point. And then also just the Harpy, pushing for 8 in any given turn if needed. I've heard whispers of Abyssal Enforcer being a good card as well. Normally a free.
Well, it's just a 7-mana 6/6 in this spot. It could have been a lot better.
Yeah, but a 6/6 is a good.
You'll take it.
It's not like a 6/4, for example, or, something along those lines.
Is there a 7-mana 6/4?
I don't know, there's probably 6/4 in the game on there. I'm just saying. Still better. Can't argue my logic.
Sure.
It's factually better. Swipe, not going to be good enough.
Not looking too rosy for Stark, even if he's able to get through this board state. The eventual 6/6 and 10/10 that are going to come down from the Pyros are going to get the job done. So Fenom does find a win with a deck that I called it hotly contested in the intro, and I think that about sums it up. It feels like there is a new one of these decks every couple of weeks, right? Like a couple of, about
always Shaman.
About a month ago, it was Gunter Mage. Is this deck good? Is it a fad? Is it going to stick around? Then it was Secret Mage. Same thing. Is this thing real? Are people just high rolling? Is it because people don't understand playing around secrets? Now we have Evolve Shaman, where a lot of people are bringing it, saying, "Hey, this deck is the nuts." VS, I believe, Vicious Syndicate put out data that says this is the highest win rate deck at Legend right now. Which you look baffled by that fact.
Baffled is the exact word I was thinking of, yeah.
But again, there are a lot of naysayers that say, no, this just isn't a real deck. It's a gimmick. It just doesn't get there often enough. But, I mean, one thing is for sure, when you land Evolve on either Two Thing from Belows or Doppelgangster, the average value checks out. Like, that is just mathematically a good Hearthstone play.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting deck. But you know what? I'm okay if we get a new deck every few weeks that people are unsure of whether it's good or not.
Job done.
Sign me up.
Ongoro and standard rotation working as intended,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. Wow. Look at Stark. Pressure. And this is, I mentioned earlier, first HCT performance.
Yeah.
First time in playoffs. A lot on the line. And to go in your first HCT playoff and have in this kind of position, you could go to Shanghai, China. You could become the champion. You could qualify for the World Championships from nowhere. This is a huge, huge deal for all the players, but for a first-timer, you don't have the experience.
It's true. And you've set it up beautifully. And as I mentioned, there's just the additional edge of Stark trying to push out to a 5-0 here, because a 5-0 versus a 4-1 could be the difference between a very, very peaceful night's sleep with your work done, or just that little bit of edge that keeps you up all night as you wonder whether that last game is going to be all important.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very stressful. And Fenom kind of in the same position, but backwards the other way, being a 3-1 player at the moment. It means that, if he loses, he's in a very, very tough spot indeed to actually get out, because I'm not sure exactly which round he lost in previously. I'm not 100% on that. Oh, we can check.
We can check. We have the technology, Raven.
Someone just throws my pen on the floor. He just bullies me even on camera now.
Fenom lost to Watt in round 3.
Okay, round 3, not terrible.
Yeah.
But definitely, obviously not great to just have losses in general. But still, Fenom, if he gets this win, it's really going to help his tiebreaker going into the further rounds. And this is like a key one, getting paired up. It's like, okay, let's get this win. And then suddenly you get that little edge on all the other players who are currently in his squad.
It looks like we are just about ready to go. If Phenom's Shaman deck was questionable, if that deck was hotly contested, I think Hunter is another big hot topic as well, because some people think this deck is very, very powerful. Firebat was saying he really felt like Hunter was the nuts last week for Europe. I kind of disagreed with him. I don't think Hunter is particularly powerful. Fast forward another week, where is Hunter right now in terms of this metagame? And classically, if you rewind maybe 6 months, 12 months, Hunter was the best deck in the game at beating up greedy decks and mid-range decks, right? Savannah Highmane and then eventually Call of the Wild following that up as well when that was released. They just got there more often than not. But now I feel like the power they can output compared to something like a mid-range Murloc Paladin just isn't quite there in terms of consistent threats.
No, I think you have to build the list in a very direct way and say, I will lose to a lot of stuff, but I will win versus this. For example, we saw RDU play Hunter, and he qualified. So it's definitely doable, but you have to build it very, very strictly and just say it all out in one play. Because I was saying straight away, early on, people were trying to play Hunter against Quest Warrior, Hey, it didn't work. You lose.
Nope.
You actually just lose. They can beat you. And that, even that, you know, Hunter was always the go-to. Okay, I'm going to beat this Control Warrior now.
But, you know,
Not anymore.
stick a Black Knight and a Call of the Wild in there, and then suddenly you're in good shape.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll see what it looks like now. It's going to be the Hunter from Fenom against the Jade Druid again from Stark.
I do worry when you talk about a class in that kind of those kind of hushed tones, though, because those are the kind of things that we used to say about Priest when Priest was unplayable, right? Like, you can build it to beat one thing, but you lose to the field.
Now look at Priest.
Kind of like a little pat on the head. And Priest got several patronizing pats on the head, one of which being Draconid Operative, which was basically saying to Anduin, you know what, buddy? You can have this broken card. You won't do too much damage with it. You're just a priest.
If they want to do that with Hunter next expansion, I am okay.
Yeah. Raven will be doing cartwheels alongside Nathan.
you'll
That's
see.
Admirable Zamora.
After we both take classes in how to perform the correct cartwheel. Let's raise them
What
out,
makes
though.
a correct cartwheel?
I don't know. That's why I need to go to a class.
Fair point. Stupid question, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the few.
Moving on.
Yeah, so Razor Mark coming out now, +3 attack, some in the 1/1s, +3 health. This is another problem deck, I feel, for Hunter. A lot of the time, and this will lead into the reason why I like +3 attack. A lot of the time...
Is your argument summed up by the two words, get 'em?
Summed up by SMORC. But yeah, you can push them down to around 10 very consistently.
Yes.
Doing that last 10 is a problem. Lacking quick shot in this rotation is a huge deal, actually. You only have Kill Command from hand and sure, Tundra Rhino for 2 potentially, you know what I mean?
Sick.
But you only realistically have Kill Commands. A lot of the time you use them to get through taunts to then power through with your minions.
Right.
But look at Primordial Drake. Then look at Feral Rage, Scales, Jades just as a whole anyway to battle for the board early. Tar Creepers. I was talking about earlier, I'm playing this in Mage at the moment because yes, versus aggro decks, they can't ever really trade that well. This is a small circumstance where, yeah, they get a really nice trade because of the nature of Grandmother being one of the few opposite death rattles. But yeah, you know, they actually struggle to just finish out the game here. Wrath is going to be nice. Well, I say nice, as nice as face tanking 6 damage is ever going to be, but this just has to be the play this turn.
I'm like, my mind is desperately trying to make this not the turn because, as you said, Wrath the 3, hero power, that's your entire turn, and you took 6 in the process. That just doesn't feel like a winning line.
You want to take 12 next turn.
Right, that is a much better question, right? And you can't really generate any kind of board state that you expect to be competitive against this, so I'm not seeing it, but it's just not a great feeling from Stark's perspective at all.
Yeah, and Phenom's running 2 Unleash.
Yeah.
So if you go, I'm going to make a board that will challenge this next turn.
Yeah, even just Jade Spirit on its own,
yeah,
right?
and then Unleash is like, oh, I messed up somewhere along the line. What did I do? Oh, you didn't kill the Hyena. Hyena's just a Hunter version of Frothing Berserker, basically.
I like that, yeah.
The games you decide, you know what? I think
Phenom again! It's like you have removal for that and you're roping it. He can't believe it. He can't believe it. Fenom, people are allowed to take their time to make Hearthstone plays. It is legal and, in fact, advised.
If I was Stark and could see Phenom's reaction, I would rope every single turn.
Hell yes.
Yeah, he's getting frustrated.
100%.
I would hover every card I could over everything I could hover it over and just wait till the rope happens every single turn.
Didn't Houndmaster that?
Which is confident in the hover roll for some reason. Which is weird because that's just poor mana utilization. You could have actually gone for Animal Companion Hero Power guaranteed the turn after. Houndmaster just straight up pushes 2 and puts a 4/3 onto the board with additional health as well. So the Houndmaster's actually in a roundabout way was just stronger than even rolling Coffer at that point.
Yeah.
Because now his next turn just
I have
weird.
nothing further to add, Raven.
Yeah, I mean, so the 2 damage you'd lose by, like, you know, you buff the minion by 2, so there's 2 damage extra, but Hoffer does 2 more. You'd make up with the hero power the turn after.
Yep.
And then you have an additional minion on the board that can actually attack as well. As if he rolls Hoffer. You know, I was just saying he rolls Hoffer no matter what. Very, very strange indeed. But what Fenom has done is he's pushed Stark down to 15 very quickly, and Stark hasn't had any great defensive options so far, and most importantly, doesn't have any armor gain, so it's not like he can Feral Rage to buy an additional turn here.
Can we just quickly imagine he already had a 5/4 on the board this turn?
Yes, it would look a little bit better. No. The hero power button would be covered up at this point.
All right. Enough about that. Feral Rage pickup is one little piece in a massive puzzle that Stark needs to solve here to find a way out of this game. But just Feral Rage as a turn on its own is not going to get him anywhere, but he needs to make a defensive line just to be able to stay alive. And little does he know, if Fenom needs to go for straight damage, for lethal, he's got that cut up with the Eagle Horn Bow. If he needs to go for board development, he's got double high mains. So this is just anything Stark wants to throw out here as a challenge to Fenom. Fenom has it covered.
There is a glimmer of hope, though. This Blossoms going into a Primordial Drake might be enough. In Stark's mind. You know, this is the best of a bad situation.
We have seen if there is one thing that Fenom likes to do, it's play around Primordial Drake.
Yeah. He will aggressively trade this hover into the 1/1 just to be like, you are not getting value.
It doesn't do anything against Primordial Drake.
No, but
though,
maybe
right?
he's just got it ingrained. He just wants to trade away as much as possible. But no, this is the... So... I mean, the natural play here, if you're going to pretend Primordial Drake isn't a card, you do Bow, because Bow's worth at least 5 next turn anyway.
This is by far the best way to play around Primordial Drake, is put your opponent to 1.
Yeah. Okay, pretty good.
Yep, I like it. Story checks out. That means if there is
a... double check the numbers for you there, Saul, just in case you made a slight mistake.
I was confident.
Covered, yeah.
Primordial Drake, if it's in hand, is now a completely dead card because Hero Power will just end the game on the follow-up. And speaking of dead cards, Stark is looking like he might be a very dead boy right now.
I was talking earlier about a lot of the time Hunter fails to actually finish off the Druid, you know, past 10 health or so. But if you look at the open hand, you know, Primordial Drake, Iron, for example, those sitting around long enough, made it not good enough for Stark. And Fenom is going to take the win and knock Stark down a peg or 2. But still, Stark is still in it. You know, the hopes for the South America players and making it into the, you know, winning this event, making it to the championships as well are still there. But that is a huge, huge win for Fenom there.
Yeah, and the evening that Stark is going to be in for is going to be in stark contrast to how it could have been if he'd have won. And Fenom, his reaction in stark contrast as well, as he was delighted with the situation. Stark has now potentially been brought crashing back down to earth. What are you giggling at?
Doing the Stark ticker in my head. Was that 4 or 5?
I was thinking like industrious. So I was doing a lot of references potential in my head. I just went with stark contrast.
That's fair enough. You got to work with what you're given. Right. But yeah, cool series overall. Nice to see some aggro decks, although I felt like it took as long as a control lineup anyway. Overall, some of those games were pretty long, but we're going to check in with TJ and Admirable.